But you never know that you could. And when you feel that way, ain't it good, good dancing in the red and gold. Dancing in the red and gold.
What's up, Faithful? Welcome to the 49er Faithful UK Live. As always, I'm your host, Paul Hope. And on today's show, we'll be talking all things goldmine. Joining me, I have a couple of returning guests in Lee Gowland and Erik Orrgárde. What's up, fellas?
Hey, Paul. How are you doing, mate?
Good evening.
And making her first appearance on the live, we have our very own Jessica Johnson, who was part of the 49er Faithful UK admin team and was with us in the goldmine last year. Believe it or not, folks, it's been 185 days since we were all together at Levi's watching our beloved 49ers take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But before we get into all that, Jessica, I'm going to put you on the spot. Tell us how you've become a 49ers fan and how you found our group.
Yeah, definitely. So my dad used to work for a team actually in Scotland when we used to have NFL Europe over here. I mean, we're talking, 20 years ago. So I was toddler even. But at the time, he used to work with Jim Tomsula. I know not too popular anymore, but when I sort of got a bit older and started getting into American football a bit more, all my family had a team, and I thought definitely time to pick a team. And at the time, Jim Tomsula was a D-line coach, and I thought, yeah, that's an easy connection. I think the 49ers are doing pretty well in the season at the point, and I thought, yeah, let's go with that and stick with that. Both my parents are actually Vikings fans, so I think I avoided something quite good there. My mum was actually, she's a part of a Vikings UK kind of Facebook group. And again, as I got a little bit older, I kind of wanted that kind of connection in the UK. I didn't know any 49ers fans. And she just suggested looking on Facebook for a 49ers UK group. And literally a simple search got me across the group.
No, it's always good. The chat is on fire. We will get to some of the comments in a moment. But Ty Alston, who was with us in the goldmine, has put, hey, Paul, Lee, Erik, special shout out to Jessica for dealing with this lot every year. Cheers for that, Ty.
Cheers,
now,
Ty.
November the 19th, 2023, saw the UK Faithful take over the goldmine section at Levi's. 40 members of the group flew in from various different parts of the globe to cheer on the team. We had a mix of people who've been before. We had people like me and Jess who were making our first trip across the pond. And it was the first time El Presidente's dream came true. He coordinated a meet-up at Levi's, which I'm sure didn't go without any hitches. There was no problems at all, Lee. But obviously at this point, I'm going to hand over to you because it must have been something special to see 40 of us take over the goldmine at Levi's, buddy.
Oh, it was definitely something special. And I mean, as I've said a couple of times, I never thought it would happen. We've tried this in the past. I think back in 2017, we had maybe 20 to 25 people say, yeah, they want to come across as a group. And then it got to the point where we'd identified a game and we said, right, let's start booking flights and hotels. And that 25 group turned into 6 people. So there were 6 of us who went across. And when I say 6 of us went across, 2 of them went across completely independently. And one of the other 4 was a Vikings fan. Our Steve, my older brother. So I didn't expect too much from last year's goldmine game. I expected a lot of people to drop out, even though we had 95 people express interest in actually going across there. Because I'd tried this so many times before, I wasn't confident that people would actually go out there. So I was quite surprised when I had to start turning people away because we had more than 40, which was a bit of a shame because originally when I'd spoken to Nick Clark when I was in the goldmine for the Dolphins game, Brock Purdy's first game when he came in for an injured Jimmy Garoppolo, I did say to him at the end of the game, what's the most we can get into the goldmine? He did say 40, but he also turned around and said, if you can bring more, we can sort something out. So when it got to the point where I was saying to Nick, we're going to be bringing more, that's when he turned around and said, yeah, it'll only seat 40. That's all I can do. So then I had to obviously let people down. But it was a stressful thing trying to get everybody organised, get all the forms signed, trying to make sure that everybody was aware where they needed to be at what time, so we could all go down to the game together. But other than the weather spoiling some of the perks, I think it went off quite well.
So I mentioned at the start, people flew in from various parts of the globe. Eric, come on, buddy. You're based in the UK now, but I'm sure you flew the furthest to join us crazy buns in San Francisco.
Yeah, I had a short 17-hour hop across the Pacific from Singapore, which is where I was living. Obviously, I've been a part of the group since, I think, 2018, maybe a bit before that. I think it's 2018-ish. Went to the Super Bowl meetup in 2019. And so when there was a prospect of a game with the gang, there was no way I was going to miss it. So I was very fortunate that I could make it. And I'd been to the Dallas playoff game the season before from Singapore, so I knew it was doable in a weekend. It just, the following week in Singapore wasn't too pleasant in terms of time zones and everything. But there was no way I was going to miss the game with the gang. You know, this group is brilliant, and a lot of the people I hadn't actually met before because I'd missed a lot of the UK meetups since moving away. But I did go to that Super Bowl meet, so I knew a few people and had met a few people, including you and Lee. But a lot of the people, a bit like Jess, was the first time meeting them in person, and it was amazing to actually put proper faces to names, which was really cool.
So Brett has put there, Lee, the downside for you is you were stood next to him during the game. So welcome to the 49th for UK Live, Jessica. This is what happens on a Wednesday night. Now, I joined quite late. When it was this time last year, I was like, I'm not going, can't afford it, family commitments. Were you on board early doors, Jessica? Did you book your place quite quickly? Because obviously, I don't think I'd seen you at a meet-up to then see your name on the list. I'm guessing that was your first official meet-up at Levi's Stadium?
Yeah, exactly. So even like Eric, I hadn't met any people prior to that. And funnily enough, I was just sort of thinking about doing a game, and I put a post on the group saying, has anyone had any experience flying out for a game? Any tips they can give me? Any information? And Lee, I think, commented and said, "Oh, we're all going over for this gold mine game against the Bucks. If you want to join, you know, there's a events page. There's some more information." And so that's why I sort of tagged along to that instead, because I thought it'd be way better to meet everyone rather than just go alone. So I think it was relatively early, but yeah, definitely a bit crazy because I hadn't met anyone prior to that.
What a way to do it, Jess. Fair play.
Yeah.
So as I recall, I think it was early September you put that post in because we were just still in the initial phases of trying to get it sorted.
So really early then. I think it was just great timing and very, very grateful, meant to be, clearly.
So we normally have success stories, and I always talk about the first time I met Lee was I jumped on a train from Darlington to Manchester in 2018, and some of my friends were like, you're going to meet some people off the internet you've never met before, yet you took it to a whole new level, which was pretty epic because obviously you didn't fly out with us. I think you flew out on the same flight as Matthew Johnson, which is a relation.
Yes, maybe I sort of like got into it like ever so slowly. So I flew out, me and Matthew were on the same flight, and then we met someone else at the airport. So sort of, eased my way into it maybe. I obviously wasn't staying at the same hotel just because of price-wise, nothing to do with you guys. So I think, and then I went to the Warriors game again with maybe 5 people. So sort of, eased my way in, but it was something I wanted to do for sure. And I've sort of flown by myself before across the world, so that wasn't the issue. But yeah.
It was funny. It was funny, Jess, because we were all kind of waiting for you guys to arrive, I think, and there was questions if you and Matt were related because you have the same surname.
Yes.
So
yes, there was. Even when we signed in at Levi's, we were next to each other in the queue, and the woman said, "Oh, you must be Jessica," because we had the same surname, even though we're not related. But
yeah, there we go. It's it was really good. Fair play, Jess, for coming all that way. My first meetup was driving to Newcastle from Reading, where I was based. So it was about a 6-hour drive, but you've definitely taken it to the next level.
Yeah, well, great way to do it.
Yeah, and that happens across the board. I mean, David Ellicott, who I normally go out to San Francisco with, I didn't meet him. I didn't know him from the group. I didn't recognize his name from the group. I happened to be over in San Francisco back in 2013, and a guy who I worked with, his cousin was out there, and he started messaging me, and I thought it was because of his cousin, but he didn't realize I worked with his cousin. He just did this completely independently because we're in the 49er group. So he said, do you want to share a taxi ride to the stadium, to Candlestick Park tomorrow? And I said, yeah. Well, we're meeting this guy from Yorkshire, and he's just around the corner from where you stay. Meet us at his hotel, and we'll all jump in the taxi together. And that's how I met David Ellicott. So I'd never heard of the guy before I actually walked into his hotel, and I was sat waiting. He walked downstairs, and I said, are you David? He said, yeah. So I'm going to share the taxi with you. And he was like, I have no idea who you are. And that's how I met him. And some of the best things happen like that, just completely randomly. Like you meet people and you become lifelong friends. And I think that's the type of thing that I've tried to promote within the group, which is why I say to people, get yourself to a meetup in the UK. You might meet somebody that you're going to be friends with for the rest of your life, and who you go off to San Francisco and share a room with to share the costs. Because it makes it so much more affordable when you do it that way.
So James, it was his first visit there. So his comment there, it was his first time up there. Neil, I was bemoaning a certain company that promises deliveries that got my headphones mixed up yesterday. So I don't know whether the AirPods have connected, whether I've got the microphone, but we're going to be positive. The reason we've got... You are, sorry? Sound good?
Thank you very much. Now, yeah.
The reason that we put this band together tonight is we wanted some different perspectives. So Eric and Lee had been before, me and Jess hadn't been. And I liked what you said there, Jess, that on the Saturday night, what was fantastic for me was it wasn't just the 49ers game. There's the Stanford game on the Saturday. Some people were at the Warriors on the Saturday night. Some people went off and did their own thing. And that's something, Lee, that you were keen to promote, that just because we were all out in San Francisco at the same time, you did want people to go off and do different things. Is that right?
Yeah, I wanted people to do their own things. I didn't want people to feel obliged that because we were out there as a group that you had to do everything together. It was a case of, this is what we do, and if you want to join us, join us. If you don't, fair play, go off and do your own thing. And I think that's the best thing about San Francisco, because there's so much to do, especially if you've never been there before. There's so much to see. I mean, I've been there so often now. You would have thought I'd get to the point where there's nothing new for us to see. But every time I go out, I find something new. And it's great. It's a great experience in the city. I know it gets a bad rap because of the homelessness. And people are saying it's incredibly violent. Now, I saw that in a post, I think it was early this week, in the group, to say, oh yeah, it's quite violent, robberies and stuff like that. Well, we were out there last November and December, and we didn't see any of that. The year before, didn't see any of that. And I was out there for a fortnight in San Francisco. So I don't know, I think people type of sensationalize some of the stories that are coming out of the bad areas in San Francisco. And it's just like anywhere. You can walk around London, and if you look down a street and you can see it's not the type of street you don't want to walk down, then you don't walk down it. San Francisco is no different. You just need to keep your wits about you and know where you are, and don't look as though you're a tourist. And to be honest, when we were all across there, everybody's wearing 49er stuff anyway, so you don't look like a tourist.
Well, you say that. When we got off the plane, we were all together, Jessica, but we were technically on our own. So the immigration was so funny because the guy was like, purpose of your trip? I was like, here to watch Stanford, the Warriors, the 49ers. And I'm flying home on Tuesday. And he like looked around and he was like, you're not going to tell me that you're on your own. I was like, nope. There's about 40 of us from the UK. And that was the common theme, wasn't it? Throughout our trip when people were talking to us. So I just wanted to get some of your insights in. So obviously you landed, there's you and Matthew. So you were in your hotel on your own, but Brett has put up on here. Were you part of the WhatsApp group then, Jessica? Because I have to give him a shout out.
Yeah, I was. So even when we were on the flight, I think people were messaging, and that's how we sort of, I think there was a message in there about, even before we'd even met, we were banding together to get Ubers together and split costs. And like we said, see who was going to the Warriors game or who was going for a drink that night or whatever, things like that. So that was definitely, yeah, the great thing about it. That made it so much easier. Definitely took the pressure off a little bit.
So there's some comments coming in, Lee. Matthew, who's been many a time. No relation to Jessica, despite what Eric said. So Matthew is a legend within the group. So he's never found San Francisco intimidating. Red Jet Shell, who's our resident out in the Bay Area. It's a big concrete playground. It's not dangerous at all. And Lee, she's got a request for you, buddy. I'll let you answer this one.
Yeah, so I mean, me and Shell's been talking via Instagram Messenger, and I could have sworn I'd mentioned to Shell that I was into photography as well, but obviously I didn't. So when she launched her photography website and I was commenting on it, she was unaware, and it wasn't until I went to Chester Zoo at the weekend and just uploaded a few photos. She mentioned, "Oh, you've got a good eye for photography," so I then shared my Flickr page with all my good photos on. So we've been talking photography for the past few days now, and yeah, I mean, I would definitely take her on a photo walk. Definitely want to go down to Baker Beach again with my digital SLR rather than just use the phone, just so I can get a quality photo of the bridge with the tide coming in, because that was one of the regrets I had. The iPhone's quite a good camera for a touristy type camera, something you can just stick in your pocket, take it out, quick snap. But to get the type of quality that you want to like blow up a big picture, it's no good. So yeah, I will keep you to that, Shell, and I will take you on a photo walk next time I'm in San Francisco.
So Eric, a big part of my trip to San Francisco was getting a photo with you, your world famous, well-travelled flag at the Golden Gate Bridge. Now I know when we went on this Saturday, it was weather from home for me. It was raining, it was grey, it was cold. But did you have anything else in mind apart from 49ers game that you were really looking forward to when you got to San Francisco?
I think it was, first of all, to meet everybody, but I was really looking forward to my first ever college game. So going to Stanford with a bunch of people, that was really cool because I'd never been to a college game before. Granted, Stanford weren't the best, but it was, yeah, definitely that, other than the game itself, obviously. But yeah, the college game experience was something. As soon as that was kind of on the cards, I was really keen to do that.
So same question to you, Jessica, because obviously you were there on the Sunday. You've mentioned the Warriors game. As soon as Lee put this itinerary to me and I could afford it and it fitted around my family plans, I was like, Stanford, Niners, Warriors, Golden Gate Bridge. What else apart from the Niners game were you really looking forward to before we went out to San Francisco?
Yeah, I just wanted to jam as much as I could into the weekend. So Warriors was definitely on my list. I love sports in general. So I know there was mention if it happens again this year and ice hockey lines up, that would be great. So I was looking at any other sports. So Warriors for me was, yeah, definitely on the list straight away. I did Alcatraz as well. I love a bit of history, just seeing the city. So I did the Alcatraz tour and then just had a wander around. Like I did like the cable car ride and like a little bit of shopping in Union Square and that kind of thing. Just trying to make the most of the city, really see as much as I could. I did the bridge, of course. I did that actually on the morning before I flew back. So I got up about 6 a.m., got to the other side of the bridge to watch the sunrise, which was incredible. Definitely recommend if you get the chance. So yeah, those are my main things.
So did you fly back on the Monday or the Tuesday?
The Monday morning, must have been about 11 a.m. So yeah, pretty quick turnaround.
Did Steph Curry play on the Saturday night when you guys were there?
Yeah, and it was because he hadn't played for the previous 2 games, I think it was. So it was unsure, and he did play, and he was incredible. And it was a really tight game. It was a brilliant game. Went to overtime, so it was incredibly tense, but a great game to choose.
So you guys got your photo near the Golden State sign on the wall. And we didn't do that on the Monday night. I was absolutely gutted because we planned to do that before, but there was an issue with my ticket. But I'm just smiling because all 4 of us could spend hours talking about our highlights, our most memorable parts of the trip. But Lee, you teased me off air. You said you had some things planned, and I'm conscious that we've already 20 minutes in. So I'm passing it to you, buddy. Come on, what are you going to ask us? Because you've got me worried.
Okay, fair enough. I thought we might go into a little bit more about what we did while we were out there, but I'll go with this. Just give me a second while I just accept this join request.
I mean, we can go back down that route. It's up to you, really. You're the boss. I just do as I'm told.
No, I mean, let's go with this then. So like I said, it's an easy one. It's about the trip that you had when you're out there. So what I am going to not accept is the answer of nothing. So what I want you to do is pick one thing you would have changed about your trip across there? And we'll go with Jessica first. Sorry, one thing that was in your control to change.
Okay. I think that I would have potentially gone out on the first night to meet up with everyone. So I didn't meet everyone. Literally, I met a few people at the Warriors game on the Saturday, and then I met everybody else on the Sunday. But I was just absolutely knackered. I was in bed asleep by 6 p.m. I think on the Friday. Just absolutely jet lagged. But I saw the pictures. I think you guys all went over to the Hard Rock Cafe and had a few. I think that actually would have been really nice if I had joined in on that. Of course, you know, it's all hindsight, isn't it? And I still had an absolutely amazing time and met everyone, and it was incredible. But I'm very big on, I only had a few days there. Maybe I should have just stayed up and made the most of my Friday as well. I think that's what I would have done.
So believe it or not, the Hard Rock Cafe wasn't the first bar we went into. So we ended up being in the Whiteout Bar on P39. We ended up going in there first to have some food. There was quite a few of us in there. I think there must have been about 25 to 30 of us in there. And they managed to find a corner for us to sit down in, so that was good. We all had food, a few drinks, and then we headed off down to Players Bar, which is at the opposite end of P39. But unfortunately, it was closed, so we couldn't get in there. So we ended up walking all the way back and going in Hard Rock Cafe, and we were sat in the bar until I think midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure it was as late as that. What I find when I go across there is if you can tough it out that first day, you can kind of trick your body into getting over that jet lag quicker. Yes, it's a tiring day. You will still be awake 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, but it's better than being awake 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because your body automatically just wakes up.
3 a.m. I think.
Yeah. So if you can push it that little bit further, it just makes it easier for the rest of the weekend. So that's something to bear in mind for future visits. So I'm going to go to Eric next. Exactly the same question, Eric.
Yeah, I think my thing that I would have changed is to not drink the second tequila old fashioned that Naji convinced me to have. No, I'm joking. The tequila old fashioned is quite nice, actually. My regret, I think, I've been to a couple of NBA games before. I've seen the Knicks and I've seen the Nets when they were in New Jersey, but not staying the extra day and going to see the Warriors, I think is my biggest regret. Having seen Steph Curry live would have been pretty special. I'm not a huge NBA fan, but I was quite jealous because I think I flew back on the Monday morning. I think it was about 10 o'clock in the morning. So I did feel quite jealous. The second one, or probably the even bigger one, which I wish I could have done, not really in my control, but would have been to tag on and go to Seattle like some of you did. That would have been awesome. So yeah, those would be the two. Can I have two answers?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah.
And what I would say about the NBA is, I've followed NBA since the 80s, but I haven't particularly watched it that much. But what I found is actually being in the arena is far better than watching it on TV because you get the atmosphere, you get invested into the game a lot more. And it's really strange to hear the noise from the rubber on the bottom of the trainers against the hardwood floor. It's so loud when you've got an arena full of like 20,000 fans all cheering, and yet all you can hear is the squeaking of people's trainers. And I just found that unbelievably strange. But you can have the two answers, Eric. So over to you, Paul. What would you have changed?
I'm going to say I'm stealing out of Eric's playbook because
you can't double up the.
I mentioned the not getting a photo like Jess and them on the Saturday night, but you mentioned going across the Golden Gate Bridge, Jess. So not last year, 2022, when Lee went out to San Francisco, Tracy had asked him to bring me a souvenir back from San Francisco, and you can't see it because the camera's but at the top shelf. Lee bought me the Golden Gate Bridge photo album, which he's going to show there. And in the photo, I've got the photo of the Austin Boston. So for me, the Golden Gate Bridge was immediately on my bucket list. And that's what I referenced with Eric on the Saturday morning. I didn't care it was raining, didn't care it was grey. But I'm glad we went back on the Monday. I just wished I'd gone all the way across it because we were at the Roundmount Cafe and we were kind of at the viewing structure there. But because we had so much planned, I think Neil put a comment on about having more time there. I think I would definitely like more time in San Francisco. Like you, I felt as if I crammed a lot in a short space of time. And Connor never lets me forget that I didn't go for an In-N-Out burger because, again, I thought I had loads of time. The Friday night wasn't the best in terms of the place we went. Like you mentioned earlier, the Wipeout Bar, the group was split in two. But because Lee had told me I had to tough it out, I'm glad I stayed up. I'm glad I got to walk around Pier 39 because since becoming Lee's friend, that's been a dream of mine to go to Pier 39, to go up the lids. But
see the sea lions. We saw the sea lions.
But to push me for one, Lee, I'm going to say next time I want to go all the way across the Golden Gate Bridge. And
it's worth,
just before, super chats.
Oh,
49ers first takes. Checking in with respects.
I was just going to say, Paul, it's worth pointing out for anyone that hasn't been to go across all the way across the bridge. You can go down to Sausalito, which is absolutely lovely, and then you can get the ferry back from Sausalito all the way back to one of the piers. That's always worth doing. If you can rent bikes and you can do it, or you can taxi across, you can walk across. It's quite far to walk, but if you have a bike, that's probably the best bet. But Sausalito is absolutely beautiful.
The Golden Gate Bridge spans 1.7 mile. It doesn't look it, but it's 1.7 mile. As poor Neil Graham found out when we took him out running, me and Connor. So I was convinced, for some reason, it was an 8-mile round trip from the hotel over to the other side and back again because I'd done it before. But then once we got to the south side of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I checked on my watch to see how many miles we'd already run, and I thought, oh shit, this is going to be about an 11, 12-mile run. And Neil hadn't ran more than 4 mile before in his life. So we'd taken it easy, really slow pace, because it was more a touristy thing, looking around at everything. I was pointing everything out to Connor. And we managed to get across the other side, and Neil was okay. He'd enjoyed it. And I think it wasn't until we probably got to the south side again on the return leg, and we were heading down to Chrissy Fields, which is when Neil's legs started to seize up quite a bit. But yeah, it was a little bit of a shocker that came to 12.1 mile.
Nice casual half marathon.
He said before we went out, Eric, Jessica, he said, do you want to take part in this run? And I Google mapped it and I was like, no chance am I going on that run. I play flag football with Connor. I see him running around enough. But that's one thing I did like about the trip, though, Lee. There was all these different things going on and different people doing different things. So that is a pretty good question. So piggybacking on the back of that, I wanted to know what each of yours most memorable moment on the trip was. Now, we need to take the 49er game out because that would be the easy answer. So I'm going to come to Eric. So on your trip to San Francisco last November with us, on the spot, you've got a couple of seconds and someone says, I want one moment, one memory. What is it that you immediately go to about your trip?
I'm going to look like a right fat shite here because one of the most memorable things was going to Tony's Pizza and having absolutely incredible pizza. We were sat out, I think it was like 11 o'clock at night by the time we got up there.
Yeah.
But Tony's Pizza, Lee and I shared a pizza and I still couldn't finish my half. Absolutely ridiculous, the size of these things.
Yeah, we left a slice, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Because that big.
But yeah, I mean, just when you asked the question, I went, oh my God, Tony's Pizza. That was incredible. So yeah, tip for anyone that likes pizza. Tony's Pizza in San Francisco, absolutely sublime. And it is definitely big enough because Lee and I shared. Somebody did get their own. I can't remember who it was. Was it Neil that got his own?
Was Neil.
It
was Neil.
Ended up taking most of it back. But that's a cool memory.
It was absolutely huge.
But it was just it was the whole thing, Paul. We got there quite late, so it was I think about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night or something. We sat outside. They had these heaters on, and we were obviously just buzzing. We were chatting away, and we ended up having this absolutely delicious pizza. So yeah, that's a bit of a core memory. It was a really good one.
Yeah, you need to go to Tony's Pizza. It was something me and Connor had talked about in a run-up to San Francisco. So the fact that we were sat outside on the street side at like 10:30 at night. So over to you, Jessica, on the spot, memorable moments.
Taking out the 49ers. I've got two, but they're very similar. So it was similar Golden Gate Bridge, going across the other side and watching the sunrise. I mean, it was so peaceful and serene, and obviously seeing the sort of skyline in the background was just gorgeous. So that was incredible. But also on the morning of the 49ers game, I just went for a walk in the morning really early up to that road. I can't remember what the road is. You know, the really sort of like windy
Lombard
Street.
Lombard Street, of course, yes. And again, no one was there. And it was, again, just watching the sunrise over San Francisco, which is absolutely stunning. It's so quiet, so peaceful, just really, really beautiful. I think that was definitely, a highlight, especially before the madness as well of the game. That was stunning.
So I've got to say that's really concerned me, that has, Jessica. I wish I'd known you were going to do that. I mean, obviously it's turned out okay. But Lombard Street, first thing in the morning or last thing at night, is one of the areas where you should be very careful, because so the thieves target tourists because you go there with a big expensive camera or your expensive phone. So there has been quite a few people who's been turned over there. It tends to be best to go during the day with a group of people, because there's always loads of people at Lombard Street during the day. If there's only you there by yourself in the morning, I'd have been a little bit concerned about that. But
that's your dad. That's your dad in you kicking in, isn't it? Your dad's kicking in there.
Yeah. Honestly, had I known, I'd have gotten up early and I'd have run around there just to make sure that you're okay. It is the dad in us, honestly.
What people said to me, Lee, are you worried about going to San Francisco? I said, no, I'm going with Lee Gowland and about 30 other people. But Red Jet Shell has put
he's the mayor, don't you know? He's the mayor of San Francisco.
I agree with Shell Law. Sunrise in the city is something to see. It's one of the city's most peaceful times. She's put there.
100%.
Ty, Jessica enjoyed some calm before the storm madness. But Lee, over to you, because this trip was something a long time planning for you.
Yeah, so I'll just keep this answer down to the San Francisco days, because obviously I extended mine up in Seattle. And the thing for me, the most memorable thing was actually getting the group together, because I've tried it for so many years and failed miserably. So to actually achieve that and to see everybody's faces when we were in the gold mine, everybody was smiling. To me, that was the best thing about the trip, because I'd worked. I'm not going to say I worked hard. I didn't work terribly hard, but it's taken us so long to achieve that. So that's something I'll remember. And that's why at the end of the game, not that Eric would know, because Eric pissed off with the Danes in a taxi early back, but I was getting a photo with everybody that came out there, because I wanted a photo with each person that was in the gold mine. But yeah, Eric decided that he wanted a beer.
Well,
I was thirsty. It was thirsty work.
The funny story, Eric. So Neil had got the big flag for everyone, which we paused with outside before the game. We'd paused at Heathrow. But when the game finished, I wasn't sure what Lee's plans were, and I'll give Nadji a shout out. Nadji was like, "You might not come back here for a very long time. Come with me." And I went for a walk all the way around the stadium with Nadji, taking in Levi's at different parts. And I'm cheating a little bit because I told you guys not the 49ers game, but you were all stood in the gold mine still, apart from Eric and the Danes, I now know. But I thought all you guys were in the gold mine, and me and Nadji were at the opposite end of the stadium, and kind of seeing the sun setting and seeing you guys stood over in the gold mine. It felt a little bit surreal. And then a security guard come over and said, "Oh, you need to leave now, chaps." And we explained, where we were from, the accents, and it was just that kind of moment. And then when we got on I'll butcher it, the tram, the train, the tube, whatever it was, coming back to San Francisco and actually interacting with the locals, and blown away that there was 40 of us from Sweden, Denmark, France. And it was just that kind of whole day for me. I just thought, wow, this is pretty amazing. But Lee, before we go on, we have reached that time in the show where we need to tell everyone about our awesome partners. Power Brand Systems empowers creators and businesses to build their brand, attract an audience, and grow through effective systems and software solutions. But don't take my word for it. Sit back, and it's 44 seconds, I've been reliably told. So just watch this video.
Ready to generate more leads from your website, Google, and your social channels without having to spend money on ads? Our platform provides you with an easy-to-use communication stream that sucks in free leads from your website, Google, Facebook, and Instagram, enabling you to reply and convert them into customers from your computer or from our mobile app. We'll even turn your inbound calls into text message conversations, so you'll never miss another lead again. Once you've converted a satisfied customer, you can shoot them a Google review request with a click of a button, which will explode your positive reviews and increase your position in search engines. The system will also pull new reviews from Google and Facebook right into your conversation stream, where you can read and reply. Jumpstart your business by getting started today.
So, Eric, you're in the bad books. We have to come back to this point. Lee, he went for a beer without telling Brett. Come on, Eric, explain yourself.
Yeah, I was with the Scandinavian crew, with the Danes, Kim and Thomas and Bo, and we shared the Uber on the way down there, on the way to the stadium. So I think it was Thomas said, "I'll get the Uber back because you got the Uber there." And they said, "Come on, let's go. Let's get ahead of the rush." And I went, "Yeah, sure. Let's go and get a beer." So it wasn't just thirst motivated, although that did help because we did have a couple of pints before everybody else rocked up. But yeah, I blame the Danes, us Scandinavians sticking together.
So I'm going to embarrass Lee before I hand over to Jessica. So another moment that sticks out for me is obviously me and Lee, president, vice president, do the podcasts. I talk to Lee more than I talk to Tracy and anyone else in my family. But that moment of getting the Uber, Lee, from Pier 39 and Lee not being sure where the stadium was because you don't normally get an Uber. And then we're in the car and Lee's like, "Where's the stadium?" And like a small child, I was like, "There's the stadium, there's the stadium." And then when we got dropped off, the fact that me and Lee got to have a private moment, as in the two of us just kind of taking Levi's and Lee, because I remember a few years ago, Lee, you saying, "When you go, I'm going to be stood beside you." And that moment kind of thought, all that blood, sweat and tears, all those text messages, phone calls, talking about the trip. And then when we met the rest of the group outside, that just started the day for me. So I wanted
this is how rumours begin, Paul, yeah? You and Lee having a private moment?
I'm just waiting for
enough,
Brett.
the way he phrased that, I thought that as well.
Well, I'm getting in before Brett jumps in the comments because it's well documented where I spent the night on the Monday night, and I'm waiting for Brett to put a comment on there. I have got a photograph, Brett, that I will share if you try and embarrass me publicly on YouTube. But Jessica, have you got a question that you want to ask anyone? Lee, Eric, me? Is there anything you want to ask us about the trip?
Oh, good. That's a good question in itself. Oh, I guess you've gone with favourite moments. What about favourite moment from that day, specifically at the game? Do you have a favourite moment from that day?
Go on, Eric. You can go first. It gives me longer to think.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because it was all very, very good. I think just sitting in between Nagy and John Chapman, because I've somehow ended up with John Chapman on one side and Nagy on the other, and just listening to them two talk about football. I've been an NFL fan for a long time, but it was like a foreign language, some of it. It was like really in depth, and I was like, I sometimes get to a point where I think, I know enough. I'm a proper fan. I stay up all hours in the morning. I watch this game for years now. I played fantasy for years. I like to think I know enough to get by. And then I listened to them two, and it was like, I'm a complete rookie and a complete beginner. But obviously also both top blokes, both Nagy and John Chapman. So that really stands out. It was a real privilege to share the game with them.
Go on, Lee. Tell us yours.
So I'm wearing a certain hat and a certain jersey for a particular reason, and I think to me for that day it was such a surprise to be given the Steve Young jersey and the hat. It wasn't something I was expecting because I've said this time and time again. I don't do it for that. I do it because I enjoy seeing people happy. So that came as a big surprise. It was a little bit of a funny situation as well, where Neil he gave you a hospital pass, really, didn't he? I didn't know what was going on. I honestly thought Neil was saying, "Can you grab all these?" so he could have his photo taken. And that's why I said, yeah, give us them in then. And then he started saying, "You go on, Paul, say something."
Yeah, so a bit of background.
When I was confused.
You're normally the one who organises everything. You set up the group chats. You're in charge of the messaging. So before we went out, Neil messaged people and said, "Look, Lee does so much for the group. We want to get him a surprise." Now, the first task was trying to find out what jersey Lee didn't have or was buying next. So we roped Andrea in So Andrew went and had a route through Lee's wardrobe. And then I think Neil stalked you around the club shop because you had certain jerseys in your hand and he wanted to know what size to get you. Am I right in thinking there, Lee? Is that right?
He did, and that completely went straight over my head because I was stood looking at the jersey, and it should have rung a bell or something. A light bulb should have went on when he turned around and said, "So what size are you getting?" Because that's kind of a strange question, isn't it? Not what jersey you getting, but what size are you getting? Oh, I'm getting a medium, and I never thought about it. And it wasn't until after you took the shirt out and you give us the shirt that I thought, right, now I understand.
So what I can share, so what I can share, Eric. So I was fully expecting Neil to get all the plaudits, get Lee together. And what he said, Jess, is he had the shirt in a bag, he had the cap ready, and he just went, "Paul, you've got a loud voice." Flung this package to me, and then I turned around and Lee was stood in front of me, and I was like, "Right, everyone, can I have your attention?" And Lee was like, "Okay, this is a bit weird for a photo, but I'm glad that was a nice moment for you." So similar to Eric's, I was sat with TED Talks Ball, and obviously doing this content creating, doing the pods. I always feel like the fourth man on the pod, Jessica, and I don't mean that disrespectful to myself. Lee, Nadji, Gareth, like Eric, foreign language sometimes, especially when I think back to the early days when I was talking football and thinking, what on earth are these three talking about? So I've really worked hard over the last few years to understand a bit more game tape and what I'm watching. And towards the end of the first half, we had the ball. And Ted turns to me and says, "Run and play this, Paul." And I looked at the lineup and I saw Kittle motion across to one side and nobody follow him. And I said, "Nah, it's a pass this, Ted. All day long, it's a pass." Anyway, the ball gets snapped. Kittle steams up the sideline, 20, 30 yards unmarked. Purdy threads the ball to him. And Ted just turned to me and went, "Fair play." And I thought, do you know what? I actually do half know what I'm talking about. And that moment kind of stuck in there. And I suppose CMC scoring the first touchdown, which was my first ever live NFL touchdown. I was wearing 23. It was our end zone. And the fact that we could just all celebrate, because normally when CMC scores, I'm jumping around the front room. Tracy pops red in the front room and says, "You're an idiot. What are you doing? Stop shouting you love that man and be quiet because you'll wake the kids up." So to be able to just cheer at the loud of my voice, that was pretty special. What about yours? What's your moment then, Jessica? I'm going to ask you your own question.
Yeah, you saying that, I mean, all the touchdowns were great. Ayuk's especially was just incredible to see live, wasn't it? But similarly, what you were saying earlier about Connor was telling you to go to In-N-Out. Connor convinced me to walk to the top of the stadium, like right at the top. I mean, that was incredible to see it from above. Before the game, wasn't too busy then, but just looking at it from above again, kind of the calm before the storm, but just seeing it from that point of view was really, really special. I think, again, first time at Levi's, sort of first touchdown at Levi's, and like just winning the game and all that kind of stuff. It's incredible. But yeah, I think climbing up that high and seeing it from above was really, really cool.
So, Lee, we've been asked a question by Ty. Is that the most photos you've ever taken in one day? Hashtag Ask Lee, which we will get trending.
Near. Absolutely nowhere near. I think you're going to be very surprised about the number of photos I did take that day in the gold mine. It didn't even get into double figures. I only took 4 photos while I was in the gold mine, which I think was probably the fewest I've ever taken when I've been in the been at Levi Stadium. The most I've ever taken in one day, it's got to be about 2,000, and that will have been in one of the London NFL events. Basically because I've got a camera that takes 7 frames per second, and every now and again I just carry it away and I just keep on pressing it. It just buzzes off and does millions of photos. But yeah, I only actually took 4 that day of the gold mine, which I'm quite surprised.
No, I didn't take many. We had Wayne to take the photos, and then we had the stuff the 49ers did. So we've got another question, which you may be able to answer, because I was a passenger princess and I just followed the crowd. So I can't answer any questions about how to get places, how much places cost. So Lee, I'll hand this one over to you, buddy.
Sure, the Uber that me and you were in, Paul, came to $78, I think. I know it wasn't more than 80. It might have even been cheaper than that, to be honest. I'll probably have it on my phone, the receipt. It was somewhere between $65 and $78. So it wasn't too bad, because, I mean, it gets you down there in 45 minutes.
Yeah, I was just looking at my phone to see if I could find the receipt, because what was the date that we were there? It was Levi
19th
Stadium.
November.
It was $63. $63.98. That's what it
That's not
cost.
too bad. Between 4 people. Like, so we point out the reason we got Ubers because there were so many of us traveling from downtown San Francisco. It was just easier to pool a load of Ubers. And obviously we had
Not
to get there at a
necessarily.
certain. But we had
Yeah,
to.
it
It's
was
the
because of the
timing. I was
time.
going to
It
say
was the
we had to
time.
get there at a certain time, didn't we? Eric, is your favourite song Shaggy's "Wasn't Me"? No Border Sports wants to know.
It's in the top 350. Yeah, no, I mean, I'll take the blame. But to be fair, nobody had mentioned in the WhatsApp. The WhatsApp was our Bible to schedules and things. Nobody had said in the WhatsApp, "Oh, by the way, we're
Yeah.
going to do something at the end." So I wasn't aware. So I'm saying
There
I'm
wasn't
doing it
any
again, aren't I?
plan. To be fair to Lee, there wasn't a plan, and that was part of the beauty of the way the day ended. When I look at that photo of them,
Yeah.
kind of the people that were there with Neil's flag, I kind of think, oh man, I'm not in that photo. But then I know I'm at the other end of the stadium with Nadji, and obviously Nadji's love of football and them explaining certain things to me. So that's part of the day. You got an Uber back, but Lee Martin says, "Sod that, I'll get the train with his international passes." He's not paying for an Uber. So Dawn, you're on the train, love.
So my Uber came at $64, so they're all roughly exactly the same there.
Yeah. Which
The
isn't
thing
bad if
is,
there's 4 of you.
yeah, if you go in the gold mine and it's the normal like 1:05, 1:30 kickoff, you have to be down there for 9:30. Now you can do it by the BART, but to do it by the BART, you go all the way down to Milpitas, and then you literally have 2 minutes from getting in there in the BART to getting across to the VTA rail light and getting on that. That's the only way you'll get to Levi Stadium for 9:30. The next one will drop you off about 10:05 outside Levi Stadium, which is why we took the Ubers down there. And looking at this year, one of the things I'm going to say to people, if you are going to the gold mine, if we do get the gold mine, obviously, if you're going, everybody has to download the Uber app. Everybody has to link it to a credit card, because what you can do with Uber is when you select the Uber, you can actually say share this ride with X, Y, and Z people, and then you don't have the problem of trying to get the money off people. It'll just automatically split that fare across the 4 or 5 people, and that way obviously it does it a little bit fairer, because as I've said in the past, I think I was about $200 out once I came home because of various different Ubers, because I kept on paying for them, and I couldn't keep track of who had taken money off, which was my fault. But I think that's the best way to do it. Get everybody to download the Uber app. And that's a kind of good segue into what's happening now. So I did apply for the gold mine, I think it was last Friday.
Yeah.
Let me just quickly
That
check
sounds
when Nick Clarkey texted us.
Humble brag.
Oh, it was Monday.
Nick Clark
It was Monday.
texting Lee.
Yeah, it was Monday morning or Monday afternoon. I applied for it because within half an hour he texts us back to us as if I was sure. So we've applied for the Kansas City Chiefs game. That's the one that won out in the poll, which is good because the other games in September is going to be expensive because we won't find out until the middle of August. The one in November is to salute the service, so you won't get free entry to the museum, and it's debatable weather, so you might not even get on the field either. And those are the 2 main perks which kind of make the gold mine worthwhile. So we've gone for October, which has its own challenges because you hit the very back end of Fleet Week, because Fleet Week finishes the day before the Kansas City Chiefs game, and it's also the start of the UK school holidays as well. So flights and hotel at the moment are looking a bit pricey, but I do know sales come up, so just keep your eye on those. So I've applied for that. Now, one, I may not be out there at all, but I'm going to be organising it. It all depends on what happens with me and my job. And 2, if I do go out there, I will more than likely give up my place in the gold mine for somebody who's never been before, so they can get the free entry into Levi Stadium, and I will just pay for a normal ticket, and I will go and sit with friends I've got out in California. And that was one of the other reasons why I wanted to do that. The last 4 times I've been across, I haven't been able to go tailgating with my friends. So I would normally be in, I think it's Blue Lot 2, tailgating with a friend that I know from Pittsburgh out in California. So hopefully this time I'll get the opportunity to do that because, as you know, I do like a good tailgate, Paul.
Yeah,
I
that's
am
lost on me
definitely
a
one
little
of those
bit
that
with
like
me.
drinking.
Yeah, with me not drinking, that's kind of lost on me. I'd still do it for the experience. I think
I
I
was going to
was
say,
talking
you
to.
need to experience it. You need to experience the shot stick every 20 minutes when you hear that bell goes. A stick comes out with shots on it, a row of shots, and everybody takes a drink of that. And like I
It's
said, it's every 20 minutes.
yeah. It's
If
worth
you're
calling out.
lucky, it's
Yeah, it's worth calling out, Lee, what you said about giving up your space to make place for other people. I also said that I
yeah,
would, and a couple other people in the group who went also said they would. So there should be spaces for people to go if they can
yeah,
make it, and we will prioritize people that haven't been before.
that's
But
right.
obviously, the more the merrier. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to give up my spot too for somebody else to come along, and I'll come and sit with you. I'll tailgate with you, Lee, and do the shots.
Well, I was talking to Jessica off air before you two joined us, and I was looking for Brett's comment because I said I'm not going this year. I'm definitely not making it across the pond. And everyone's like, "Yeah, yeah, you said this last year." Honestly, other priorities this year from a family point of view. But I know Brett is going out to Tampa, and he's put here that he's fully
Yeah.
booked up for the Tampa game and Chapman's Road Rush parties. And I know you said, Jessica, maybe a different city you might want to experience this year. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I saw a couple of posts or comments about a few people thinking about Miami, maybe. I was just saying to Paul, obviously it's always great to watch the 49ers play, but perhaps experience in another city rather than just seeing San Fran again. Of course, I mean, it's great to have a home crowd, isn't it? And like you said, tailgating and that kind of thing, but maybe, yeah, looking at another city, but still getting to watch the 49ers play might be something of interest for me this year.
So the Cardinals and Seahawks, that's probably the best chance to get a double header and keep your holidays down to a week, so you can go out on the Friday before the Cardinals game on the Sunday night, and then we play Seattle on the Thursday again in Seattle. And even though I've said I'd probably never go back to Seattle because I've kind of seen it now, I would definitely recommend you go out there because it is a nice city at the end of the day. It's got the same problems as San Francisco. It's got a large number of homeless people, and because the city's considerably smaller than San Francisco, you kind of notice it a little bit more. Other than that, I mean, Lumen's Field was impressive. The noise was good, not quite as noisy as what I would expect it to be. But then again, it was pretty much 3/4 full of 49er fans rather than Seahawks fans. But then you've got Pike Place Market, you've got the Space Needle, you've got Bainbridge Island. There's plenty to see in Seattle, especially if you're only going to be there for a couple of days. I think that's more than doable, and it gets you to another city in America.
So Neil's put there, he wanted the Miami game, same as Jessica. He's too close to Christmas though, so he's looking at Minnesota, which was one of Lee's, and Tampa games. Now, to be fair, I know Simon Friskney is thinking of going out to Vegas, I think, Jessica, and then flying over. And I have friends who went on a stag do to Vegas, not Niners fans, and they flew out for the Niners-Panthers game. So that's something that I might do next time if Tracy comes with me, do the Grand Canyon, kind of do that way. And you mentioned Alcatraz before, and I have to say, that's always been a dream of mine to go to Alcatraz, but it's something I'd promised Tracy we'd do it together. So on the Tuesday, when there was just me and Nadji left in the city, we went for a walk up to Kezar Stadium that Lee had suggested. But Alcatraz is something that will be on my list for next time. It was kind of surreal seeing how close it was to the front, but not being that close. So I'm quite jealous that you did.
Funny you mentioned that, Paul, because I've been to San Francisco over 10 times, and I've promised my missus that I won't go to Alcatraz until she comes along. So I still haven't done it, haven't been there 10 times. I'm still waiting for Mrs. O to join us, and then we'll go together.
So when you do go, get the early bird ticket. So it's the 8:45 sailing in the morning, because you get over there on the first boat across there, the first ferry across there. So it's empty, so it's not as crowded, and then you can spend as much time as you want on there, and you'll more than likely have the audio tour, so you've got your headset in. And I would say take the time to listen to the headset, because it tells you all about the different places you go in. There's one part which Jessica might recognize. It's in between two of the cell blocks. You walk in between, and the floor is pockmarked all over, and they're basically shell craters of when they were shelling the island.
Wow.
Moses.
So yeah, it's just interesting finding out all about that sort of things.
So changing tactic, Gary's trying to get out for the Buffalo game. So we've talked over the last few weeks about trying to get photos of whoever goes out, whatever game. If you're at a game, if you haven't got a flag, reach out. We'll get you a flag, because I said to Lee, I think 2 seasons ago, wouldn't it be epic if we could get a photo of a UK member at every game? Now, I know it's a pipe dream, because obviously I can't say, right, we need everyone to go to all 17 games, but I think that's where the flag thing started for me. And then Eric, you took it to another level. Then Wayne took it to another level. So I'm not sure how we're going to top Wayne's, but I'm sure
You'll have to get one on the moon.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, is it worth you, Lee, mentioning what you posted in the group the other day about flags?
Yeah, so I have created a video. I'm going to do it again though. I'm going to create a video of how you can actually order the flag yourself, because the file is already in the group. It's in the file section of the group. You can go in there to PDF file. So I'm going to go through what I do with bannerbuzz.co.uk. It's an Indian company. It's not a British company. So there was an element of risk, but I've now spent thousands with them, getting the various different flags. So I'm going to go through, let people know exactly how they can order it, because to be honest, because they're so cheap compared to the previous supplier, you literally save pennies. I think it's 21 pence once you start putting a bulk order in. So it's not worth waiting for a bulk order because it's so cheap. And then it's all the work that I have to do, because they all come to me and then I have to ship them all out again. And it ends up costing just as much as it would cost doing it yourself anyway. So I'm going to do that. And what I was just about to say about the flag there, I need to stop giving away my flags, because I keep on giving them away, which is why the last time I was on holiday I didn't get any flag pictures, because I didn't have any, or didn't have any of the smaller ones. Now I've got 2 bigger ones. I actually gave one away yesterday. Now this was a special one. This is one I've been trying to get into somebody's hands for ages, and it didn't work. So I handed Nick Clark 2 of the 3x2 flags in September 22. So this is when he came over. This is when the Queen died. So this was the Bears game. So we ended up turning it into a 49 affair for UK meetup, and I gave him 2 flags and said, look, can you get one of these into the hands of George Kittle, and can you get the other one into the hands of Sammy Womack? So basically what Nick did was he put them in the lockers, so that they were there for when they came in. I do know that George definitely didn't get his, because Emma Kittle, she confirmed that on the East Coast Red and Gold podcast, which our friend who's in the chat, Ty Olsen, is one of the hosts of, and it was Ty that asked the question. So she actually confirmed that he didn't receive that. So I've been speaking to Emma outside of that via Instagram Messenger. She's given me the address of her ranch in where's it, in New Mexico.
Humble brag.
Yesterday morning I sent out a 5x3 flag and 6 jersey patches for Emma to give to George in June.
You know I'm breaking the internet. If that photo goes on Twitter, buckle up, everyone, because that will be getting retweeted.
So what I've also done, so I wasn't intending to put the 6 patches in. I thought, you know what, I'll stick the 6 patches in and I'll try my luck again. So I did say to Emma, look, if by any chance Kristen Jusek can use one of these patches on a jacket, please by all means pass her one of these patches.
Look how his mind works. He's next level, this man. Next level.
Genius.
Exactly.
So, on that note, though, Ty, we appreciate that you fly the flag. It wasn't a dig at you, buddy. You'll have seen the love on Instagram. It was just more, some people might never get out to the States, so we kind of started flying the flag at various different monuments. Funny story, me and Lee went to Palma last year, Mallorca. On the taxi route to meet Lee, I realised I'd forgotten my flag. So it's a good job Lee had his flag, because you'd have had both of us on a Spanish island meeting for one day only with no flag. So that would have been quite funny. But is there anything else, Lee, about the gold mine that that we could talk for hours and hours? But
I had a question. I didn't get to ask a question. I had a question for you 3.
Ooh.
Yeah,
sorry, Eric. Sorry.
That's all right. But the 3 of you were actually interviewed, so I wanted to hear a bit more about that. What that experience was like, and what you thought of the outcome of those interviews. Maybe start with you, Paul. What do you think of that?
Yeah, Brianna, obviously, face of the 49ers. It was a little bit surreal watching the footage back. I'm known for being quite loud, so the fact she told me to be loud in the microphone, I cringe every time I watch that video back because I'm very loud, which Lee is smiling. My setup has been set up by Lee. So it was a bit strange because we didn't know what she was going to ask us. The fact that we were at Levi's, I found she was really nice. She was really down to earth. And she seemed quite impressed at our knowledge of football and why we were there. So that was a pretty surreal moment. So
Brilliant.
I'll hand over
Lee?
to Lee or Jessica now.
Yeah, Lee, why don't you go next?
So yeah, it was a bit of a strange one. This. I'm trying to think how far I want to go into the story. So I was requested to identify 5 people, which I did, being the 5 content creators, and then I was vetoed and told we want a certain demographic within the setup. So I said, fair enough. I tried to pull out, and I couldn't pull out because he said, you have to be the first one interviewed, because what they're going to ask you will basically follow on to what they're going to ask everybody else. So I thought, fair enough. So I did the interview, and the questions came in. The questions kind of made sense. So I thought, yeah, I know where they're going with this. So I did my interview, and then everybody else did theirs. And I think it was about a week later we saw the output of that. Obviously, Nadji was cut for whatever reason. Don't know.
Too handsome.
Yeah, possibly. It's probably because everybody thought it was Aaron Rodgers. So listening to everybody else's interview, I was stood there thinking, hang on, none of the questions they're asking anybody else follows on from what they asked me. So I don't know why I needed to be there to do that, because I tried to pull back because I've done interviews before and give somebody else a go, but Nick wanted us to do the first to do the first interview. What I will say though, so I followed Brianna on Instagram, on TikTok, and I watch all of her videos online, as I do with any sort of 49ers content creator. And this might sound really weird, but I couldn't believe how tiny she was. For some reason, I had it in my head she was about 6 foot tall, where in reality she's about 4'10". She's the smallest person I have ever met. Honestly, I was completely shocked because Nick turned around and said, "Oh yeah, you're going to be interviewed by Brianna." I thought, "Oh, fantastic!" So I'm looking all over the place to find out where she's at, and then I look down, and here's this little girl stood in front of us. Sorry, that sounds really patronising. This short woman stood right in front of us. I said, "Oh, I'm Brianna." I was like, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" Yeah, so that came as a little bit of an eye opener. It's the type of thing where you I'm not calling her a hero, but you see famous people you recognise off TV, and then you actually see them in real life and think, wow, they're completely different to how I imagined.
Yeah. We should try and get Brianna on a show, to be fair. Do you reckon she'd be up for it?
I've thought about it
I
because
think she'd be up for it, yeah.
She interviewed with Ty, so Ty got some footage, Eric, before Jessica answers, of us all being interviewed. So I went on Ty's podcast not long after I got back to the UK, and he showed me some unseen footage. And I suppose for me, the highlight was the footage that the Niners cut together and put it on their YouTube channel. So they have like 2 million subscribers. We have 1,000. So to see all of us at various stages in Levi's on the 49ers actual YouTube channel was pretty special. But I'll hand over to Jessica because she was interviewed as well. Big part of the day, that for you, Jessica.
Yeah, it was really cool. I always think, as well, speaking to a woman of, I'm presuming, a similar age was really cool. It's always great to see people who are similar to you in those kind of spaces that you enjoy. It's nice to, it's an almost instant connection, isn't it? To kind of make that relation to someone. So that was really nice to see her in those spaces, and of course made me feel instantly more comfortable as well. And it was just such a cool experience, and like you say, great to see like the outcomes of it. And I'm sure we're doing more amazing work over there on that kind of train of work. But yeah, it was a really cool experience, definitely.
And me as one person who wasn't interviewed, want to say that all 3 of you did a great job repping the group. So well done to all of you. It was awesome to see. Lee, what were you going to say? I interrupted you.
So I was just about to say, I did reach out to both Nick and Brianna to say, look, is there any chance we can have like the full interviews? Because obviously they took a small section of each interview. I think it was only 10 seconds of each interview. And I think we were all interviewed for at least 3-4 minutes. So we were interviewed not at length, but obviously longer than a 10-second clip. And I was definitely interested to hear Jessica's story off that 10-second clip. I think the rest of that story would be quite good to listen to. Now, I don't know whether or not the reason they haven't bothered to give us the video is because they plan on using it still and cutting it in a different way. But yeah, I've tried to get those videos and had no luck whatsoever.
Well, to be fair, I do want to go more in depth with Jessica's story, but obviously there was the four of us tonight. I have reached out and tried to get Jessica on, so she's kindly joined us tonight. So I'm hoping this isn't her first and only appearance on the live. But I wanted to ask all three of you a question before we finished off. So the gold mine, Lee, is a unique experience. Obviously, you're there working for the 49ers. You've said that many a time before. Even knowing what I knew, I didn't fully expect it. So, Jessica, what was the most surprising part of the gold mine section for you on a whole? If people are watching this and thinking, right, I want to go home, not sure what it's about, what would you say is the one thing about it that kind of surprised you, if that makes sense?
Oh, what a good question. I mean, we were sitting in a great space for starters. We were definitely super close to sort of the field in general. But I think one thing that surprised me, just having that free time at the beginning. I know Lee mentioned also we didn't have access to the museum, but just having that free time, I walked all the way down to the first row and I walked all the way up to the top row. So I think I really got sort of a great view of the stadium and really sort of, for a first time anyway, really made the most of it and saw everything that I could, you know, even from the shop to the outside and all that kind of stuff. That definitely surprised me. I mean, it's huge, isn't it? I know I'm sure you guys have all been sort of like Wembley and those kind of stadiums, but it's something else. And it was just, especially when you love the team and you follow it and it's your first time there really getting that experience, it was just absolutely incredible. And also maybe something else, if I can have two things like Eric did, the sort of the show they put on, isn't it? You know, we had, obviously they do the national anthem, they bring out the big flags, maybe because it's salute to service, but they had the sort of the flyover and the people parachuting in, and it's just incredible. And they have the choir at half time, and it's just, yeah, it's a whole show. So it really is just, you don't know what's going to happen. I feel like it's always a surprise and just keeps you engaged the whole time. And yeah, just really is such a spectacle, I think is a good word to put in there.
No, I like that. I did like the national anthem, the flyover. That was something that was high
really
up my bucket
special.
list. And stood next to Ted, proud American. Obviously, it's not our country, but I've always liked the American national anthem, the flyover. And like you said, the spectacle. They did that at the Warriors game. They did that at the Stanford game. But no, I like that answer, Jessica. Eric, what about you, buddy?
I think how hard Nick Clark works you and the lack of voice the next day. I think Lee tried to warn us, but you really are screaming and shouting from the first minute to the last, aren't you? With little break, and so I needed to keep my vocal cords very nicely lubricated. The gold bar helped with that. But yeah, I've been going to English football for years, you know, chanting in the terraces, etc. So I thought, no match for me, but I had no voice on the Monday morning when I flew back. It was just Nick Clark gets you going, and you're there to provide, to be the fan chapter. So I was surprised about that a little bit. I had absolutely no voice the next day, which was fun.
Yeah, funny you should mention having no voice. I didn't have no voice on the way back on the BART. Mine was just completely gone. It was absolutely shot.
And I should have known better
as well. Yeah, probably. It was a little whisper coming out. So what was the most surprising thing about the gold mine? So that was my fourth time in the gold mine. And the most surprising thing was how bloody cold it was. Stood at the back. It was absolutely Baltic. But there was no way I was going downstairs and paying $150 for a hoodie or a fleece blanket just to warm up, which is why I decided to let Brett keep on buying his cans of Space Dust. And once I got to a certain alcohol level, the cold didn't bother us anymore. So that was the most surprising thing about me.
Red Jet
the
Shell,
for me.
You're a member of the group, so you are entitled to apply for a place if we do get the gold mine. So that would be pretty epic. The infamous Jessica Jacket Club was launched at Levi's Stadium. Erik Orrgárde, Naji Karab bought those amazing jackets. I have to say, Lee, I thought Ted Talks Ball had an epic bluff because it was a little bit chilly on the morning at Levi's. But given that Ted's a local and he comes strolling over in a jersey and a pair of shorts, and I felt really bad that I had a hoodie on. And then when we were waiting, I think you were getting interviewed, Jess, and I was stood with the assistants, and they were both young girls. You know, I'm a man in my 40s. I'm old enough to be their dad, and they were talking to me about coming over to Europe, and was it cold in Europe? And I was like, this is a hot summer's day from where we come from, and they were freezing. And I was like, if you're going to come across the pond, you might want to bring some warmer clothes. But obviously, we were lucky with the weather. Late, it was blue sky, obviously sun. It wasn't warm.
Didn't stop it being cold.
It didn't stop it being cold. But it rained at Stanford the day before, so
it did. And I tell you what, think yourself lucky. I don't know if he's still watching or not, but James Waters turned up in a miniskirt.
Oh.
The kilt. His attire was sublime. Absolutely superb from Jimmy.
It was. And it got noticed quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
Everybody that walked past us said something.
Is there anything else we need to mention, Lee, before we finish off? Because I know I've said to Eric and Jess I'd keep them an hour. We've just gone over that. I could talk for another hour. But is there anything we need to mention about this year's gold mine or anything I've missed about last year's trip?
Just to reiterate that we won't find out until the middle of August. I know that fine well. Hopefully we do get the Kansas City Chiefs game, but we need to bear in mind as well, I think it's going to be one of the most popular games at home during the season, that and the Lions game. So if we don't get it, there's always next year. If we don't get it, I am still tempted to go across, but it might not be for the Chiefs game. I might reevaluate which game I'm going to, because I think I've mentioned a few times, I wanted to go to Minnesota to see the 49ers play in Minnesota. So I might actually opt for the Jets game, the opening game of the season, and then on the Thursday night go to Minnesota. Thursday night, or is it the Sunday night? It's a Sunday night. It's a week later.
Monday and Sunday, isn't it? I think.
That's right, Monday and Sunday. I knew it wasn't quite a week.
Yeah.
So
I might do that.
James is still in the chat. He said he thought he looked rather strapping. Red Jet Shell. I wasn't drinking alcohol on the day, so I kept myself hydrated with soft drinks, and I was quite warm. But honestly, Jess, Eric, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for giving up your time. As I said, I do want you back on again, Jessica. We'll talk a bit more about your journey with the group. And like Lee said, I think we were all keen because you were new to the group on the day, and then Brianna interviewed you, and we thought we're going to find out a bit more. So I do appreciate that. Any final thoughts, Lee? Have I missed anything off before I do?
I have one final thought. If anybody's wondering about going, it was the absolute trip of a lifetime. Memories to cherish. So if you can do it, don't think about it. Just do it. Absolutely phenomenal. That would be my final point.
So one thing I would do this year. So obviously I took a small group of us out to Tony's Pizzeria, because honestly it's the best pizzeria I've ever been to. But there was only a small group of us there. I think if we do get out this year and we have enough time, we'll do both Tony's, and whoever wants to and can afford it, we'll go and do the Stinking Rose as well, which is just round the corner. And that's the place that specialises in garlic, because until you've had their 40 clove chicken dish, you haven't had anything. And the garlic ice cream as well. The garlic ice cream, you have to taste it to believe it. Well, so I think I'll try and get people around there.
On that note, everybody, we will be back next week, 8 p.m. British Standard Time. Topic and guests to be announced, so do keep those notifications switched on. Check out social media. It's that time of the show, Lee. Please do like, subscribe, tell your friends about us. We are trying to get the road to 2,000. But once again, thank all three of you for joining me. I've had a blast, as always. Thank everyone for watching the chat. We love the Wednesday chat. You deserve your flowers as well. But Lee, I've got the right video loaded up this time. We don't always get it right at the end. But thank everyone for watching. As I said, please like, subscribe. Until next week, stay safe and go Niners.
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in our heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, deep Clark. Garrison Hurst, stiff farm going 99. Don't